My name's Albert Ching. I'm managing editor of CBR, and I'm joined by three wonderful creators who all have ties to Dark Horse Comics. That's the auspices of this panel. I don't think officially, but in the convention's eyes, certainly. And I'll start to my left. He's obviously the guru, so many credits. Garfield and Friends, many just years and years of wonderful work. Mark Evanier. And wonderful writer-artist. You probably know Distant Soil, and current work from Dark Horse. Is it out or coming out soon, Trollbridge?
2 weeks.
2 weeks, I know, yeah, soon. She adapted Neil Gaiman's Trollbridge in a hardcover graphic novel. It's coming out in 2 weeks. Colleen Doran. And another wonderful writer-artist whose Dark Horse work is currently in its second volume, Lady Killer, and is also just announced to be illustrating a new Supergirl origin story for DC Comics, Joelle Jones. So how's everybody doing? I guess the first thing I should ask is, since this is nominally a Dark Horse panel, and all three of you have close associations to Dark Horse Comics. What does that publisher mean to you? I mean, certainly a publisher that's been doing different material, various genres, creator-owned stuff for almost pretty much long as it's been with at this point, going on 30+ years. What's been your experiences like working for that publisher?
I'll go first. Can you guys hear me okay? Okay. I like working with Dark Horse. They gave me my very first job in comics 10 years ago. And they gave me my last job as of a week ago, so I'm pretty happy with that.
Oh,
Yeah? Oh, okay.
Yay, Dark Horse. I've worked with them a few times. Once, many years ago, on Ghost,
right,
which is ancient history, and they've been very, very tolerant and cooperative, especially on the Neil Gaiman book, because it's a very laborious technique that I used to paint the book, and they were willing to wait however long it took, no matter what the contract said, bless their heart. So I'm all for that. And they keep hiring me, so I'm really all for that. So yay, yay!
That's a very important part of the process, I think, for all aspiring comics creators out there.
Let me tell you about Dark Horse. I do this comic book called Gru the Wanderer with a man named Sergio Aragones, and I will continue to do this with him until Donald Trump deports him. We did the book originally for Pacific Comics. Pacific Comics declared bankruptcy. We then did the book for Eclipse Comics. Eclipse Comics had a flood and went out of business. We did the comic then for Marvel. At the time we left it, Marvel had declared bankruptcy. We did it then for Image Comics. People at Image Comics, partners all began suing each other, so we left there. And we said, well, what company can we destroy next? And Dark Horse said, we would like the book. And I said, okay, fine. We, might as well eliminate Dark Horse while we're at it. And we've been doing the book now with them for about 12, 15 years now, and somehow Dark Horse still seems to be in business. So you have a very courageous publisher here. You also have a publisher that seems to be interested in, and very few publishers these days are, actually publishing comic books. You get to, in this business now, the major publishers all look at comic books as, they look at themselves as entertainment companies, and the comic book division is kind of their cheap new products department to develop new properties that can be turned into movies or TV shows. Dark Horse is actually interested in making comics. The only money they make off Gru is made off publishing comic books. And I like that. I harken back to an era where everybody wanted to make money publishing comic books. So it's been we've had a very nice association with them, and I hope we don't put them out of business anytime soon.
Buck the trend so far. I mean,
right.
yeah, 12 years is pretty good. Yeah, Dark Horse Comics is like one of the few publishers left who's them in Image, obviously a few others, but like comics is actually their thing. It's not like entertainment or studios or anything like that. And I just want to talk about some of your recent work. For anyone here in the panel who might not be familiar, start with you, Joelle, with Lady Killer. This is obviously been a very big book for you. First book that you've written as well as drawn. What can you tell folks here? We had some art here. I'm sure I'll scroll back around. I wrote some of Colleen's art. But what can you tell people about Lady Killer and the very unique book you've developed over there?
All right. Lady Killer, it just came out with a second issue of the second arc, so I don't know, 7 issues. That doesn't matter. It's basically about a 1960s housewife who on the side is an assassin, and her family doesn't know, and all the hijinks that happen because of that. Yeah.
Yeah, no, quite a bit of hijinks, as we'll see when we are here. One sec. Here we go. And your first volume you co-wrote, right, with Jamie Rich, and obviously, he's doing his own thing now. No, you got rid of him. No, he's I know he's busy man as an editor over at Vertigo, but you're doing this solo. What's that experience been like? Your first solo comic that you've been writing?
Well, I mean, I've always, I never wanted to write. I was not interested in being a writer. I didn't consider myself a writer. But I kept getting comic book scripts that were of genres and stories that I just really wasn't interested in. A lot of romance comics, stuff that is fine, but it's just not my cup of tea. Right. And I just wasn't getting that thing that I really wanted to do, so I thought, well, I have to write it myself. But I was terrified of the idea, so I asked my longtime writer and collaborator, Jamie, to come on board and help me sort of write the dialogue, because my dialogue still really stinks. And then kind of call me out when you see a big mistake. And so he stayed on for the first 3 issues, and then by the end, I was kind of doing it on my own, and but it was nice to hold on to the side of the pool for a little bit longer. And then he got the job as editor at Vertigo, and he's like, well, I'm really sorry I gotta leave. And I'm like, don't let the door hit you. I'm ready to do it on my own.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh, that sounds great. And Colleen, we were just talking about Trollbridge coming out in just 2 weeks. There we go, there's the cover.
Yay.
Lovely. And you're adapting a Neil Gaiman work there. Not the first time you've worked with Neil Gaiman. What can you tell us about Trollbridge?
Trollbridge is an adaptation of a short story written by Neil many years ago, and as you can see, it's a fully painted graphic novel. The original drawings are in pencil, and I decided to go with a classic children's book look, golden age children's book look. It looks like watercolor, but it's not. That's digital. It took me a while to come up with this technique. All of these are very meticulous pencil drawings, and you're welcome to come downstairs and have a look at some of them. I've got some of them on a portfolio at my desk. And I honestly did not know how to do this book when I started, because I'm not a digital artist, but I had to become one quickly. And so all of the painting on this is done in a technique I've developed to look like watercolor without actually being watercolor, and without obscuring the pencil and keeping as much of the original texture and technique as possible. And it was just being thrown into the water and go, well, figure out how to do it quick. And that's what I ended up doing. It was not the original color technique I was going to use. I'd done a story for Tori Amos Comic Book Cat 2 that Neil really liked. He really liked the technique. It was a very mixed media technique using layered pencils with hand-painted abstracts in oil emulsion and gold and silver leaf, and it looked really cool. And I tried to do this story in that technique, and I thought it was way too self-consciously arty. It interfered with the mood of the story. The story needs to be in that little boy's head. And I had been working on the book for over a year and threw it out and started over from scratch and came up with this, which I've never actually done before, but I'm very happy with how it looks. It really is in that time, in that, golden age of children's book time period that I was trying to grab, and I'm so happy with it. And so I'm, people have seen what I've done so far, and they're like asking me to do more stuff in this kind of technique. Unfortunately, it's really laborious. Every page takes about 2 or 3 days to draw in pencil, and it takes about 2 days, sometimes 3, to paint, because you can't use the standard Photoshop techniques of the paint bucket and then going in. You have to use a transparent brush and paint exactly as if you were painting by hand, except you get to fix mistakes. So everything is very, very transparent and one on top of the other, every brush stroke. In fact, when I started, I didn't really even know how to use layers. I had to figure that out. So it was very embarrassing, the whole job. It took forever. But Dark Horse was really tolerant, and they were willing to give me the time to learn how to do what I was trying to do, and very tolerant about, well, she's going to throw everything out and start over. And I'm grateful for them giving me the on-the-job training time I needed to do my best work. At least I think it's my best work. I hope you like it. So there you go. Oh, I also wrote the adaptation. So yeah. And that was very nice of Neil to trust me with this story. I was really grateful that he let me go in and do what I needed to do. And mostly they just gave me the time and the space, and I was really grateful for that, because I'm just so happy to get to do something and not compromise on the visuals. So thank you for listening.
I think a nice thing about the format like this, to be able to do like an archograph novel, and that they gave you that time, and that there wasn't like a monthly deadline to hit. It wasn't like a mini
you
series
can't
on that.
do this level of work.
No.
You can't. I mean, you know, I think like 4 or 5 days a page, and it would have gone a lot faster if I knew what I was doing, but I didn't. So I would work on a page and then throw it out, start it over, and but once I got the hang of it, it started to get, you know, pick up speed. But the pencil technique is super laborious. I use an old master technique that they used to use with metal point. Does anybody know what that is? Great. Well, one person. In modern drawing, they encourage you to use the side of the pencil and draw on great swath and do something. I use a super tiny pencil lead, no bigger than the head of a pin, which they all tell you in art school don't do, but that's the way the old masters would draw, only they did with silver. So I use the silver point drawing technique, and I glaze it with different hardnesses of lead. So every page has gone over like 3 times. There's no smearing or smudging. If you look at the drawing, it's on a Strathmore 500 5-ply heavy duty 100% cotton rag Bristol, and everything is drawn like this, and then another pencil like that right on top, and then another pencil like that right on top. And it's a complete waste of time, because in the end you don't see a lot of that, but by God, you don't get that texture that I love in there. You can see it, and it just, you know, everybody's going for super smooth with Photoshop, and I'm like, no, I want my stuff to look of the hand.
Do you go from hard to soft lead?
Yeah, start off with a super hard lead, really hard, very delicate. And then I go to an HV, and occasionally I'll use an ebony. And then I will go back over it with a super hard lead. And then I will use a heavy duty archival fixative to put it in place, because that puppy's gonna smear all over the place. You know, just breathing on it, stuff moves. And then I color it. You know, so it's just laborious and stupid, and don't do it.
But look at the results, right?
But I'm happy with the result, but you cannot do comics this way unless you've got a publisher that's going to wait. And unfortunately, you're working for page rate, and it's just really hard. So bitch. But I'm very happy with it.
So this is what you do when you don't know what you're doing.
This is pretty much. I'm serious. I didn't even know how to use the pen tool. So when pen tool, getting a straight line. So I'm in there delicately doing straight lines on my Cintiq by hand, because I didn't even know how to use pen tool when I started this. You can laugh. Photoshop people can laugh. But
see, this is where I feel my work has more integrity, because when I don't know what I'm doing, the reader knows it. Okay? You fooled into thinking you know what you're doing.
Hey.
And that's, you know, sorry.
And how many pages is the book?
I think it's 64 pages. It felt like 170.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, see, all of the tree in there, you don't just use a paint bucket and then use a brush that fakes all those leaves. You go in and you paint those frickin' leaves, and then you layer on top of the leaves to get the dappled effect. I mean, that really took a long time. That took like 2 days to do that top panel.
Wow. Yeah.
So anyway, you've heard me pitch it. I hope you buy it.
So Mark, I don't have any art prepared for you, but tell us
Here,
about the latest with you.
I will do hand shadows to imitate.
What's the latest with Gru?
We have a new Gru mini-series in progress, the second issue, which should be out. This should be someplace in that room out there. If you can get through the cosplayers, there's people selling comics behind them somewhere here. And it's called a Gru, Fray of the Gods. And I've given up trying to tell people what issues are about. Either you understand the comic and read it, or you don't. And we've been doing now, I think this is our 170th issue or something like that, or 175th. And you know, if you haven't caught on to the book by now, we're never going to get you, I suspect. But it's another Gru mini-series, a series that I have enormous fun doing. And we're starting now on the next thing, which is a 4-issue mini-series of Gru meets Tarzan. We already did Gru meets Conan, we did Gru meets Star Wars, we did Gru meets everybody at DC. No, we didn't do Gru meets Star Wars, we did Gru and Conan, we did Serge and I meet Star Wars. Anyway, we just every so often decide to tamper with other people's material. And the Edgar Rice Bros people were nice enough to say to us, here's Tarzan, please leave something of him when you're done. And we're going to do that with Tom Yates is going to be participating that with us, who is the serious Tarzan. I mean, we juxtapose the serious Tarzan artist with Sergio, and we get something that hopefully will be entertaining. And other than that, it's just we just keep doing Gru, and it goes on and on. We can't kill it no matter what we do. It is. I would like to point out the only comic book probably published today which has a regular letter column in it. And for that, somebody ought to buy that just for that alone. Thank you.
So, who has questions for these wonderful panels? We've got three, obviously, very talented creators, all doing, interesting, different stuff. Who's got a question?
We can wrap this up right now.
Yes.
Joelle, you mentioned your first job at Dark Horse was 10 years ago. What was that job, and how did that transform into where you're at?
Well, it's a little embarrassing. I showed my portfolio at a convention to Diana Schutz, who was an editor there at the time, and she was amazing. And she said, I'd like to give you a job, like on the spot. And I thought, oh gosh, I must be like really good. And she just needed girls because she was doing an anthology of all women comic book artists, and I don't think she had enough. So she's like, hey, you're a girl. Here's a job for you. So, I got lucky to be in the right place at the right time, I guess. But thankfully, so I did a little anthology for that. And then she liked what I did and then kept throwing me more and more little jobs. So I was able to really learn on the job. And, they had a lot of patience for a lot of my problems. And I learned a lot. So.
Yeah, and if you were obviously terrible, they still wouldn't accept you for that anthology.
Yeah.
Obviously, yeah. Obviously, you had something.
So far, yeah.
Obviously, yeah. Back then, you had.
If you can't look back at your first job and be embarrassed by it, it means you haven't improved at all.
That's a very good point.
So it's a good thing to. I have to tell people that all those early comics were done by the other Mark Evanier, but it's not.
All right, who else?
While we're waiting for a question,
yes.
I just got my Twizzard little news feed here, and it said that the rapper Coolio was arrested for possession of, and it didn't finish that. So I want to know what he was arrested for possession. I figure comic books, yes, thank you. Yes, he has copies of Gru. Anyway, there's a question out there somewhere.
Yes.
There's a loaded gun at
Well, that's a good place to have one. That's if you're going to have a loaded gun, go through the metal detector. Fine. See, now we're asking the audience questions.
Yeah. I mean, I'm still thinking about Coolio. Poor guy. He seems troubled. Yes.
Hi, it's a question for Colleen. Colleen, it's Jim Higgins. I know you're used
Hi.
to seeing my image this big on Facebook.
Yeah.
How did you said you did the adaptation of the
Sure.
book. What was your process? In other words, you had a prose short story that you were going to adapt into comics. And from what we can see from the pages, it's interesting. There are pages that look more like comics and pages that look more like illustrated
Sure.
books. So how did you break it down, and what was your approach to the writing?
Well, I sat around and thought about it for a really long time before I did anything, because I conceptualize before I do anything, and then sat down and I shouldn't tell Diana this, because when it actually came to writing it, it took about 48 hours. And you know, I just like think, okay, boom, boom, in 2 days it was done. And the reason why I use a lot of the splashes is because I want you to stop and look, and I want to control your time. To me, the splashes are, to me, this book is more about mood than anything else. It's about a feeling. And especially in the early part of the book, when the little boy is going through the forest and thinking about his past, the splashes are meant to make you stop and look around, because in the story there may be one sentence that I will spend an entire page on. Like, I thought I was in fairyland. None of that is in the picture is in the story.
I was one of the pages that stood out because I saw there was one sentence on it. And
That's it. That's all that's in the story. My obligation is to bring something to the story that isn't there, and to expand that. I mean, it's really a short story. It's only like 6-8 pages, and I got to make it a graphic novel. So I've got to bring something that wasn't there. Otherwise, why are people buying it? So the shot of the little boy with the monsters, again, it's like one sentence. And so I'm bringing as much of what is in that boy's head that is suggested into the pictures. That's what I'm trying to do, and I'm trying to control your mood. Like, that's it. That's all that's there for this whole scene. That's not in the prose. There's nothing of this descriptor in the prose. And that's, you know, I thought it would be funny to put Jill Thompson up there in the corner, you know, kind of a scary godmother. So, you know, so, you know, if you read the story, there are ghosts and bats.
Is there any dialogue, or is it all caption narration?
There's virtually no dialogue in the story, and it's important that there not be, because this little boy is incredibly self-absorbed. He doesn't relate to other people. This is about him and his absence of empathy. If you notice, I draw him in flat black, and there's flat black on him throughout the story. He is soulless. If you've read the story, you know what a nasty little shit he is. And so I've drawn him in flat, and in fact, in this shot where he's striped, I'm trying to suggest visually, not that he's a bee, but that he's between. He's betwixt and between until he grows up, and then he is nothing but black from top to toe. And he's not a nice kid. It starts off as this bucolic, sweet story, but it's not. It's really creepy. It's very creepy, and I think the or at least I think, because I am a narcissist and I'm an artist and drawing my own shit, I'm hoping that you believe, as I do, that drawing this as a cute children's story, a story that is really kind of horrible, will have more of an impact. That's what I'm trying to do with this.
Well, the visuals really, like the comparison of this and these beautiful lush pages of, boy in the meadow, he's just having a good, what a lovely day, and then
this. That's what I'm hoping to get. I wanted this to be, I think there's a couple of different ways of, well, many different ways of doing comics, but one of the ways I like doing comics, and I don't get to do very often, this is one way, is I consider it illustrative cartooning. That is 1 foot in cartooning and 1 foot in illustration. A lot of people would look and say that's not real comics because there's not a bunch of panels and it's not very sequential. But I like making you pause and look around the page and giving you a sensation and a mood. And Warren Ellis does that too. He did that a lot in Orbiter. There were multiple splash pages in Orbiter that were meant to make you stop dead and look.
If you look at children's books, you're seeing more and more of the children's picture books coming out that have a few panels in there, so they're actually, and those are published by book publishers, but they're coming at it from seeing so many graphic novels that it's...
Like Sector 7 and other books like that. I agree with you, and that's what I was trying to do with this. And we're talking about doing another one to go even further in that direction. It would, technically, it really wouldn't be a comic at all. It would just have a few sequential art sequences in it, but mostly be illustration. So I wanted to do something like this because I've always wanted to do some children's books, but with the really elaborate old style illustration. A lot of people are going cartoony, and the more cartoony other people get, the more I want to go this way, but I don't want to go Alex Ross. You know what I'm saying? Illustrative, but not real.
Well, you know, maybe next time you won't pick the technique where you draw each page 5 times, so you can make a living.
Yeah, well, yeah, but I'm hoping people like it so much that they'll come back and say we're willing to wait and pay you better.
I hope so too.
When does that ever happen?
That's not comics.
Yeah.
Who else's question? Yes, right there.
So, Mark, I want to say thank you for writing News for Me, the weblog that you've been writing for many wonderful years now. And I was curious, has there ever been an interaction that started on the blog and then found its way to a comic page, whether it was just a funny story from a reader about a deli that used to exist in Los Angeles that, like, I guess a gag that studio could draw. I guess that's also a question for the panel. Has there ever been an interaction online that's made it onto the comic page?
To the comics page? I don't think so. We did have, I can't actually tell this whole story, but about 2 years ago, 3 years ago, I did a panel at Comic-Con in San Diego, and I was talking about some upcoming projects, and a news reporter, a guy in the audience who was working for some comic book news site, reported the thing and got every single thing wrong. It was an amazing, it was like, I think he was not, you know, English was not his first, second, or fifth language or something. And he got everything wrong on the thing. And he prints this whole thing about a new book I've got coming out that I'd never heard of. He's got it all completely wrong. And I posted a very polite, you know, thing on his site saying, by the way, I'm not doing that book. I don't know where you heard. They put a retraction. And people were coming up to me at Comic-Con. This was during Comic-Con. People coming up to me and saying, when is that book? And I say, I'm not doing that book. I'm not doing that book at all. And finally, an editor came and says, why didn't you bring that book to us? We want it. So I'm doing that book for them now. Occasionally a mistake will work out okay, but no, it's the blog is kind of one way. I just write stuff out and whatever interest. I am really I've discovered I am very good at things that pay no money, like this, for instance. I have at conventions and a weblog. If there's no money on it, that's where I am. I'm good at it and stuff like that. So, thank you.
Yes. So what's the lifestyle of the Dark Horse author? I mean, you said you first published about 10 years ago. Does Dark Horse kind of send you out on trips around the world to promote your best novel,
The most interesting journey you will ever take, courtesy of Dark Horse, is trying to get through their phone system.
No, it's not glamorous at all. It's hours and hours alone in your pajamas. You can't be bothered to get dressed every day. And my days are usually between 8 to 16 hours of drawing. And then I go out and do conventions, and I vow I'll never do them again and stay home for 6 months at a time, never leaving. And then I get convinced to do another convention, and then so it's a bad cycle. Yeah, it's really very boring.
But some of the travel is probably fun, right? You probably do some conventions.
I did. I've done a few where
it's
been really awesome. I live in LA, so this doesn't count.
Right.
Yeah, I've been to some off. I get to go to Sweden next month. I'm very excited about that. Yeah, I've never been, so occasionally something awesome pops up. I've been to Mexico. Yeah, a few places.
So, I mean, I know that Dark Horse does a big booth at San Diego Comic-Con. Are you like usually part of that? Or?
Yeah, I usually go every year, but I have family that lives in San Diego, so it's two birds with one stone. I get my visiting out of the way, and then I do a little bit of work. Otherwise, I don't think I would go to San Diego at all. You guys have been.
Well, yeah, I've been to every single San Diego Comic Convention, which is free. Like 3 of us. The thing is that we don't really work for Dark Horse. We work for ourselves, and Dark Horse publishes what we do. And we work probably exactly the same way as if the book was being published by some other publisher, except the check will be later. And you know, we're freelancers, and we have our own little businesses, and Colleen has an empire going there. But we all have our own little business. We do what we do, and you know, we call it Dark Horse, and they say get the book in, and we get the book in, and they don't really care how we do it, as long as they have the book reasonably on time, and you know, the words are mostly spelled correctly, and it's publishable. And I don't know what else we have in our contract. Dark Horse, they're not allowed to do anything to the comic. They have to. They're not allowed to change anything. So Sergio and I have final say on everything, and if they want to change something, they have to call us up and say, is it okay if we spell the word on page 9 correctly? And we go, okay, fine, you can change that.
How often does that happen at this point? How often do you hear from them?
Very rarely.
Yeah.
Very rarely. But I mean, they're very good. It's not that they're not good people.
Sure.
I've been doing this so long.
You know what you're doing at this point.
You hand in the book, and I learned that I've worked for a lot of incompetent publishers. I've worked for people you better send it in perfect, because if anything, if they do anything, they will add mistakes to it. They literally will add mistakes to it. I worked for a publisher I worked for publishers that couldn't get the pages printed in the right order. And that happens occasionally. So you learn that you need to basically be your own editorial office and hand the book in as foolproof as possible. And we don't need to do that with Dark Horse, but we do, because that's just the way we work.
I live on a small farm in rural Appalachia, so I live a really mellow, bucolic existence. And I was joking when I said I was narcissistic, except people don't like me, think that, then they can screw up. But what I mean to say is I tend to be really self-absorbed, and I think a lot of artists are. And it's so disconnected and so mellow and so isolated where I live. We have a clock with the days of the week on it because we never know what it is. And I have to have people checking in on me because I get so spacey that I'll like, what week is it? And I'm always getting dates wrong because we're just living in this Hobbit-like existence. And you know, if you remember when you're sitting there reading Lord of the Rings and the first 6 chapters, nothing but people walking around, that's what rural life is like. You're very floaty. There's no sense of time. So, so I have to have people kind of running around picking out my detritus because I won't really feel the passage of time. But I do work really long hours, like Joelle here. I like it. I have a really cute office. I have my little tea set right there next to the drawing board. So I have hot tea, and I like to have friends over if I can to come in, and we all sit around, have tea, and they watch TV, and I work. And I like to watch movies while I'm working, listen to audiobooks. Sometimes it does get really dull, and sometimes it gets really tense. I was working on a project where fairly recently where I had to pull 100-hour weeks, and that wasn't funny. I didn't like that very much. But if I need to take a nap, I can take a nap. That's the best thing ever. Go take a nap. Yay. I'll do that. I'm all for it. So in some ways it's really, when things are going well, I just love it. When things are not going well, you just want to get a job at the Piggly Wiggly.
Do they still have Piggly Wiggly?
They still have Piggly Wiggly.
Wow.
Yeah. Piggly Wiggly.
I want to know more about this clock. Is it just a clock?
It has Monday, Tuesday,
Because I've seen that before. Yeah.
Yeah, and we just don't know what day it is. I'm really bad about it. I have to have
Makes
like
sense, yeah.
backups and backups and backups for dates and times because I don't feel it. We're just floating around. And you know, and a lot of people get angry if their editors call. I don't get angry if my editors call because I don't know what the fuck of the day is. Excuse my language. But
Don't say editors.
don't say but yeah, I just have a, you know, is it Thursday and it's like Tuesday. I'm always like that. So actually getting out and going to conventions is good for me because I'm connecting with other people.
Yeah.
So I, you know, maybe it's just me because I'm living in Hobbiton, but it's very different, I suppose, if you're living in a city. And I haven't lived in a city in a really long time, so whatever.
Do you have animals on your farm?
I don't, except well, I grow a lot of my own food, although
Okay.
I don't have much time to do that anymore, so probably next year I'm not going to grow any food. But we do have a lot of bears and deer and foxes and things like that. It's very exciting.
Exciting, yeah.
Yeah.
Who else has a question? Yes.
For your current projects, and I guess you guys have been working together for a long time, how do you come up with the next idea together and with the other two? What inspired you to get involved in like Lady Killer and the Neil Gaiman project, and how you brought that to Dark Horse like that? Just creative process. I'm curious.
Sergio and I go to lunch. We talk about everything except the issue, and finally we realize we've talked for 2 hours and we don't have we forget what the next issue is. And he'll say, "What should we do in the next issue?" And I'll say, "Oh, let's do something." And he goes, "Okay, fine." And that's so it really you get very casual. And one of the things I like about Doing Grew is we've been doing it now for forever. And I like the idea of the challenge of let's figure out something different to do this month we haven't done before. My favorite comic book of all time, purely childish emotional level, is The Fox and Crow. Anybody remember the Fox and Crow comics BC published? They published this thing for about 24 years. There were 4 stories in an issue, plus the characters are also in another book. So basically every month they were doing like 6 Fox and Crow stories, the same writers, the same artists, and they had a cast of 2, and they still kept thinking of new things to do each month. And I just thought that's wonderful, each month to be able to, the challenge of coming up with something without changing the characters, without making them untrue to themselves, without, anybody can do a new story if you bring in a new character. So we try not to bring in a lot of new characters these days. And it's the challenge of doing it. So it's what writing is all about. It's the challenge of it. But the nice thing is every story is different. Once you get into the story, it's a really different job each time. Anybody?
How to get together on the Neil thing. I've known Neil for many years, I think since about 1989, before he got famous. Yay. And Neil had just started writing prose, and he would fax me stories to read. Fax. Ha.
Does everyone know to fax?
Yeah, really. And he sent me a couple of stories that I really liked, and I said, "Oh, this would be so great to do it as a comic." And he sent me another one, and it was Trollish. I said, "I want to see you do this one. I want to see you stretch a little bit and do something like this." And I was like, I didn't like it as much. And he says, "Look, I'll give you the right to do it. Do it as a short story." So I did it as a short story in Distant Soil, and I did a really bad job. It was in pen and ink, and I just didn't get the story. And I had a tight deadline, and if you want to go see it, go buy A Distant Soil number 25. It's in the back. And I sat down and I was like, man, that's really not very good. And I'm sure Neil wasn't happy. And when he's not happy, he generally doesn't say very much. And years later, I just percolated, and I read the story in prose years later, and I said, I just saw it completely different. I said, wow, that's not what I remember. I think I was just too young to get midlife crisis when I read it. And I said, Neil, I've always regretted that story. I just didn't think I was up to snuff, but I bet if I did it again, I could really kick butt on this. And he said, do it. And that's how it happened. That's it.
Yeah, I mean, I started Lady Killer just, wanting to do a different story, but I've always been obsessed with mid-century design and clothing, and mostly it was the illustrators of the time and the styles that they worked in, and how a single image would tell an entire story without having to read anything. And I went out, and for years I collected like the most sexist ads I could find, and framed them up in my house. They just tickled me and made me laugh. And I like the idea of living in that world and kind of playing with it. And then pretty much like the duality of people. Like, you know, everybody's got two different sides and secrets that they don't share with other people. And I think people are great, are capable of doing great things and terrible things, and still being one person. And I just kind of wanted to play with that idea. And I really didn't think it was going to do very well, and apparently Dark Horse didn't either. And so they did a really limited run for the first one, and you know, my intent was only ever just to entertain myself and kind of get it out of my system. And people seemed to enjoy it, and it did. It went to a third printing, I think, for the first one. So yeah, it's done really well, and then people wanted me to do a second one. I'm like, I don't know. I guess if it still makes me laugh, I'll do it. It still made me laugh, so I'll keep doing it until I'm really bored with it.
How meticulous is the research in terms of fashion and furniture? I mean, just, you know, you can see just on that cover. And obviously, it's much easier now, I would assume, than ever to. But it still, it doesn't seem like that easy to really capture consistently. I mean, it doesn't seem like an easy thing to do.
No, it's really laborious. It's a pain in the butt because I like to pay a lot of attention to backgrounds. So that means like every single item has to be researched. The clocks, the trash cans, the carpets, the wallpaper. And because I'm the writer, they're like the scenes, the transition scenes, they get you from one scene to the next. They can be so boring for artists to draw. And I wanted to give myself like a personal challenge in each one of those. So I'm like, I'm gonna fucking nail this wallpaper that nobody's gonna see. It's gonna be covered in letters.
See some wallpaper here.
Yeah. Yeah, so for me, it's like each one is like, all right, I'm gonna go crazy with this one thing. And I know it drives my editor bonkers. Because he's like, just knock it off. Like, you can finish a lot faster if you stop doing it. But, you know, I don't think any other projects, like I'm doing Supergirl, and while that's very satisfying on one side, nobody's gonna give me these challenges to do in any other book except for myself. And I find it like a playground in a way to be a better artist.
Yeah, I mean, you can just see, yeah, obviously just these sample pages. And this is from number 1 of the second volume. You can see the detail there. Doesn't seem easy.
I have fun.
Yeah, it seems fun though. Yeah, especially if you're already drawn to that aesthetic.
Yeah.
That's something you already have interest in, absolutely.
Third printing. The only time I had a book went through third printing because the first two were blurry. I actually had a friend of mine who wrote a novel. He was bragging that it was in its 4th printing. And I was really impressed when I found out he has a print-on-demand book. So that means they'd sold 4 copies.
Better than 3. Speaking of things that make you laugh, Joelle, this is obviously a provocative page right here. A lot going on there. I think we definitely have time for 1 or 2 more questions. Yes, right there.
This question's for Joelle. You mentioned you're working on Supergirl. How would you compare and contrast working for like a big 2 publisher compared to what you're doing with Dark Horse?
It's been really interesting. The first few jobs I did with Marvel and DC were, they felt a little bit more restrictive and a little bit scarier, and I think it was because I didn't really have a strong voice at the time as an artist. And so it was a bit more daunting. I feel like now that I've matured a bit as an artist, it's been a lot easier because basically it's like, well, you know what you're going to get now. You hired me to do that thing. And I have a lot more confidence in saying that. Of like, so that's what I'm going to do. I do have to pull back quite a bit on my violent tendencies. For Supergirl in particular, which is shocking, I'm sure. But yeah, I find it enjoyable, probably because I get to balance it with stuff like Lady Killer, where I get to do whatever I want on this book, and on this book it's going to be more of a team effort, or, you know, like Supergirl's so precious to the fans, it means more for me to keep in with what people love about her for them. So, you know, they're totally opposite, but they're both rewarding.
Yeah, no, on Supergirl you're working with Rico Tamaki, obviously that's great writer, so that's yeah, it sounds like, it seems like it's going to be a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to that book.
Yeah.
Anyone else? We got time for a couple more. Yeah.
Hi, a question for Mark. Is there any possibility of you bringing back either for Dark Horse or for someone else, Crossfire, Hollywood Superstars?
If you couldn't hear, the question was, is there any chance of anybody bringing back, you mentioned 2 books I did called Crossfire and Hollywood Superstars. The problem is that the artist who did those, a man named Dan Spiegel, is a little old and not able to draw. He still does wonderful commissions and color paintings, but he's not ready to draw a comic book now. And I don't really want to do it with another artist, because he was the reason to do those books in the first place. So maybe someday I'll reinvent them or something, or recycle them. But you need a better reason to. You know, you can't go back sometimes to something you did before easily. You have to come up with a real reason to bring it back, other than you miss it. So, thank you, but I don't think we're going to do that for a while. Ever.
All right. Any final thoughts, questions, comments?
Doesn't seem to be.
Doesn't seem to be.
Is there a motion to adjourn?
Well, thanks so much for coming. Thanks so much to this wonderful panel. Sharing your time and insight. I'm sure most of you have tables out there in the convention center where people can find you. Where can folks find you out there?
I'm in Artist Alley. I can't remember the number. Me neither.
It's not that big of a convention. Yeah, you'll find them.
I have a belief that no one will ever give me a table. I do not want a table. I will not sit behind a table, so I'm just wandering aimlessly.
You have experience with wanderers. So.
That's right. That's true, yes.
That makes sense. Excellent. Thanks so much, everybody. Have a great rest of your convention.